We actually had a deal with my parents that I will try anything they say for a week. And if I don't like it, I can let it go. But I have to give my sort of best effort at least for a week to see if there is potential. So I can't sort of ignore it completely.
Well, I love that they took an iterative approach to your learning. They said, let him try it out for a week. If he likes it, he'll keep moving forward. If he doesn't like it, let's try a new experiment. I mean, that's genius. I think that's a learning lesson for all parents. How can you find what motivates your child and use that to their advantage, leverage it to help them assimilate new knowledge?
Welcome. This is Phil Michaels, Forbes 30 Under 30 entrepreneur and performance coach. Forbes names the top 30 entrepreneurs, leaders, and stars in the world. And each week, we bring you one of them to help you level up in your life and business. From celebrities like LeBron James to Kylie Jenner and Cardi B, you're sure to learn from the list. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now it's time to level up. Level up. Level up.
Welcome to the Phil with Forbes 30 podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. He made the Forbes list in Slovakia in 2018 for the science and education category. He's a research scientist and postdoctoral fellow at the biopharmaceutical company AbbVie in Chicago. He started his career in chemistry in his home country of Slovakia, co-authoring his first patent at the age of only 15. He has a planet named after him and scored the highest score to date in the organic chemistry exams at the University of Oxford. He earned his PhD from the K.C. Nicolau Lab of Rice University in Texas, where he co-authored a patent that was recently licensed by a pharma company. Please welcome my very special guest, Dr. Buchman.
Thank you very much for having me, Phil. I'm very honored to be here.
Very excited to have you here and share your story with the guests. It's my pleasure. I'm honored as well. And before we dive into things, Dr. Buchman, where were you when you first found out you made the list?
I would say it was in the lab because in 2018 I was still doing a PhD with KC at Rice University. I actually think I missed the very first email just because I had all the things going on at the time. But basically, I was very, very pleased to find out after sort of diving into all the message in my inbox, and I was very, very proud to make the list.
Such a proud moment. And who was the first person you shared it with?
Definitely my parents, and they were overjoyed about the news.
They must have been very proud. Very exciting moment for you. But take us back to the very beginning, Dr. Buchman. Where were you, where you grew up, the path that led you to where you are now and making it to the Forbes list ultimately?
So I was born in 1993 in a small town of Slovakia called Levice. I then moved with my parents to the capital city as I was growing up. I actually lived in Japan for about 4 years when I was a kid because my dad actually works for a Japanese company. And then as I was going to go to elementary school, we actually moved back to Slovakia at the age of 6. And I went basically through the entire education system up until the end of high school in Slovakia. And in the last year of my high school, I actually applied to University of Oxford for my chemistry degree, for my undergraduate studies. And I was very fortunate to be able to get an offer for a place at Magdalen College, which at the time was basically ranked highest in the Norwegian table, which sort of puts in perspective all the colleges at Oxford at the time. And I was also very fortunate to also be the recipient of the Palgrave Brown Scholarship, which actually allowed me to actually attend Oxford almost free of charge, which was absolutely wonderful. And after that, I moved to Houston, Texas, where I did my PhD with Professor Nicolau in the field of organic synthesis, basically in terms of making some biologically active natural products. And after that, I joined AbbVie as my postdoctoral appointment, and I've been here for about a year now, and I'm currently working on development of some new methodologies for drug discovery synthesis.
Unbelievable. I mean, you're 15 years old and you're already writing a patent and you go on to Oxford, but how did you even come about writing, co-authoring a patent at the age of 15? I mean, how does something like that even happen? That's amazing.
So I think quite a large proportion of that has to be attributed to luck. I actually met with one research scientist from the Academy of Sciences in Slovakia at a sort of outreach event that they actually hosted in a shopping mall. And I sort of asked him if I can sort of come observe some of the chemistry that they do, because I was super excited about chemistry at the time. It was just sort of, I think it was the first or second year I was just getting into it. And he agreed. So I basically went on and sort of worked with him on a research project over the next year or two, and we're actually sort of able to sort of transform that up until a very successful outcome.
Unbelievable. I mean, the fact that someone believed in you too at that early of an age, he must have saw something in
I'm
you.
surprised too, to be absolutely honest.
Have you ever asked him, like, what did you see in me that he might not have seen in other candidates or students?
I think the quite common denominator of very successful people that I was able to sort of interact with over the last couple of years, I think enthusiasm and some motivation and being sort of self-interested in something goes a really, really long way. I actually had a chance to be a TA for a few courses at Rice, basically both in the lab and in the lecture. And you can clearly see that it's a joy to teach students who take genuine interest and passion in a subject that you're teaching them.
Yeah, there's not many people that get juiced up about organic chemistry. So when you find one, you're like, okay, I got one finally. I remember in pre-med, OChem was like a nightmare, and you're like, oh gosh, I have to go into this class again. But you actually enjoyed it. You loved it. You found a passion. And I mean, such an early age to identify a passion like that is pretty rare.
Absolutely. I mean, I would definitely say I didn't sort of take the sort of most conventional way of getting an education in terms of going to, I guess, a specialty that's probably most commonly hated between people. However, it's very, very dear to my heart. I had really good experience so far, and I really do love it. The thing is, if I didn't, I definitely wouldn't be where I am right now, and I wouldn't go through all the sort of pain and hard work that actually got me to where I am in my life if I didn't sort of truly love my subject.
At such an early age, was there some inspiration that, I mean, since 3 years old, were you like diving into organic chemistry? I mean, how did this come about for this passion?
So no one in my family has been in the sciences or the chemistry, as far as I can tell. Somebody sort of only sort of black sheep in this regard. I had no idea about chemistry, I would say, until probably the age of 13, 14, when I first started to have it in school. And actually, my mom was the one sort of nudged me towards trying the chemistry Olympiad, which was something that I think she did when she was sort of my age at the time. And this was something that I didn't sort of really, care for at the very beginning, but I sort of figured out, I'll give it a shot. We actually had a deal with my parents that I will try anything they say for a week. And if I don't like it, I can let it go. But I have to give my sort of best effort at least for a week to see if there is potential. So I can't sort of ignore it completely. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And at the very sort of lowest level of the chemistry Olympiad, which is basically just sort of chemistry in school, it's mostly based on mathematics and some calculations. And I was always, I think since I was 3 or 4 or 5 years old, I was quite inclined for math because my parents actually took a lot of time to sort of practice, and sort of play school with me. It was a sort of gameplay, and I mean, I think now looking back, it sounds a bit dumb, but I think it was a very, very clever decision on their part to basically make education a game. It got me interested in learning at quite a young age. So I actually went to this Olympiad, and at the very lowest level, it was mostly all maths, and I did pretty well. I actually won some regional round in Bratislava, so without, I would say, too much preparation, which was really exciting. And so product that actually came with it that I didn't expect was that all the sort of successful solvers of the chemistry Olympiad actually get to go to a camp in the summer, which basically is a 2-week camp at the university where you can learn both basically have about 3 or 4 hours of lectures, and you also have a few hours in the afternoon of sort of lab practicals where you get to do some really exciting experiments. And that, I think, was sort of pivotal moment. And that, I think, was a pivotal moment for me when I sort of figured out, okay, this is something I truly fell in love with. And my motivation going forward wasn't necessarily, I want to learn more about chemistry, but I want to go to this camp again because it was so cool. So basically,
it made it fun. It was edutainment rather than education. And your parents were smart enough to know to gamify this. Let's make it fun for him. And he's going to look forward to educating himself in this realm. I think that's a learning lesson for all parents. How can you find what motivates your child and use that to their advantage, leverage it to help them assimilate new knowledge?
Mm-hmm. It was definitely something that, now looking back, was a really, really smart move on my parents' part. I'm very, very grateful actually they sort of fostered interest in basically almost anything I came up with. I had to sort of at this liberty to at least try and sort of see if it's something that will interest me sort of further. And there were definitely things that I've tried for a while, like painting, and I was absolutely miserable at. So that didn't go very far.
Well, I love that they took an iterative approach to your learning. They said, let him try it out for a week. If he likes it, he'll keep moving forward. If he doesn't like it, let's try a new experiment. I mean, that's genius. Children are already curious by nature. We already want to explore. We want to find new stimuli. as soon as we're born. So if you can just facilitate and foster, like you said, that curiosity, that childlike curiosity, then the child's going to love learning. But sometimes we try to force them into a box of doing things that they don't like to do. And ultimately it leads to them associating learning with something bad and maybe not even looking forward to going to school.
So I actually must say that, I started off as sort of most regular elementary school in my district when I was 6. And I think I quickly realized that I was able to sort of process information at a little bit of a higher rate. And I started making noise and sort of being, I guess, not the best student in the class because I was getting bored. And I think the sort of I guess, standard approach to that is, you'll get in trouble because, you're talking to your classmates, you disturb other people, you get in trouble. And I think the sort of key thing here was that I think also my parents realized as well, actually put me into a school for gifted children, which had a very interesting approach. Basically, as long as you finish an assignment, they'll give you another one. So at no point you should just sit around and do nothing. It was more of a sort of personalized approach to, you can move basically at your own pace. And if you're finished with the curriculum, there's plenty more to go around and we'll give you more work to do.
They tailor the learning to your speed at which you learn and process information.
Yes. And the other thing also was that basically you're surrounded by other students, other kids, which are also at roughly your level of sort of comprehension and of speed of going through material, which actually sort of facilitates two things. One, you can cover more things in the same 1 hour lecture. And also you can cover those things in a much higher speed. So at no point you sort of feel like you're just sort of waiting around doing nothing. You always have new and new challenges in front of you. And that sort of keeps you motivated, I think, quite a lot. And I must say,
a lot of teachers, when they find a student like that nowadays, it seems like, at least in the US schools, is they label them, oh, he has ADD, or oh, she has ADHD. And they put this label on them and then they try to medicate them rather than let's see if they just learn at a different speed. Maybe they need something to occupy them because they're bored and they're a child and they're exploring and they're curious and they're energetic. And we ask them to sit down at a desk and just not move, don't talk, be silent, which is the antithesis of what a child's brain is doing at that stage when it's creating so many new neurons and firing so many synapses.
I love to actually bring one example that I think stood out to me the most and probably influenced my sort of learning sort of career, basically from my high school the most, with this really great math teacher called Anino, who I'm deeply in debt for basically being as smart of a scientist as I am right now. He taught me most sort of important things and sort of important concepts in math. And the way he approaches his lectures and sort of and sort of classroom management, I think is very, very unique. And actually, so actually the rules of work. And in most schools, you can't go to the toilet during the classroom time. You can't eat. You can't drink. You can't talk to people. And basically, the approach that he took is that as long as your last grade in the subject he was teaching was the sort of most excellent mark, you're allowed to talk to people, obviously quietly, not making disturbance. You can drink, you can eat, you can go to, and you can go to the bathroom if you choose to do so. And basically, as long as your performance is good, he will sort of make some concessions, and you can have, I guess, a sort of more, I guess, pleasurable experience in the classroom.
More autonomy. He rewards you. If you have good performance, you get more autonomy, more freedom.
Absolutely. And if it was a 2 at that point, I would have to, I guess, ask him now which sort of privilege you lose. But basically, you lose, I think, talking to people at that point. And if you have a 3, you can only drink but not eat. If you get a 4, you can, so
he's using operant conditioning
to
condition you based on your behavior on what stimuli you're going to receive, whether it's a punishment or a reinforcement, and if it's going to be negative or positive.
And to me, that obviously that went really well. I think he's one of the, I would say, probably favorite teachers at my high school. I want to say hi to him right now. If he's listening.
There you go. Shout out to, what's his name?
Anino Belan.
Shout out to you, Professor. You did a great job. Keep going. And I mean, obviously, listen, you're winning the Olympics for chemistry. You're on this skyrocket path. You're writing patents at age 15, and then you get into Oxford and you score the highest score to date on organic chemistry exams. I mean, how did that happen? Did you just keep following this trajectory of study, go to camps in the summer? What led you to receiving that high score?
So actually, as I must say, so basically over the course of my last few years of high school, I actually attended some university lectures in Slovakia at a community university as well. As interacted with my professors there, did all the chemistry Olympiads and the preparation camps, and basically sort of trained to be as good of a chemist as I possibly could be already sort of before even going to Oxford. So I must say that in my mind, I sort of figured, I'll go to a university and I should already know most of the material, because actually the chemistry Olympiad, especially the highest level, is probably on par with most college material that I've seen so far. And I must say it was quite a big slap in the face when I joined Oxford and realized how difficult their exams were. When at the beginning of the first year, when I look at the year-end exams from based past years, I would barely pass. I was, at the sort of pass-fail mark in the sort of 40% range, but I was nowhere near sort of actually being able to solve all the questions and answer basically all the problems. Because I think the way I've learned all the things in high school, and also basically for the chemistry Olympiad itself, I didn't realize this at the time, but I wasn't necessarily understanding deeply the concepts of why things work. I just knew the formulas and could do the computations on them very quickly. So I sort of learned and trained how to solve a very specific sort of set of problems that sort of appear on the Olympiads, and sort of to do well on those tests and do the practicals really well. But I don't think I had as much of a solid background as I thought in terms of the deep understanding of where things come from. How can you derive the formulas? So what's the sort of background behind all of this? So actually when I joined Oxford, and we started at the very beginning of the tutorial and the lectures, the sort of first few homeworks that actually I turned into my tutor were covered in red pen all over the place. I truly think there was more red pen than blue, and I was crushed because I was so very much used to being one of the best, if not the best, in what I do. And then someone proved me you don't understand almost anything, and you have major gaps in how you sort of understand, how you sort of view the subject. And that was a very difficult experience. It was something that I honestly contemplated. I'm going home. Screw this. I'm clearly not qualified to be here. This is not going to work. I could have done that, and I definitely did sort of think about that being one of the options. However, the other option was, okay, look, I have someone who's clearly trying to help me out by basically marking all these things wrong. He's trying to basically point out all the things I still need to work on and improve upon. And if I just do that and sort of try my best, and keep going at this, it will be difficult. It's going to be, blood, sweat, and tears. But hopefully, he's done this enough many times that by the end of this sort of first year or the end of the degree, I should be in a very good position. And since we are talking together now, I clearly chose the latter of the two choices. And I worked really, really hard. 100-hour weeks was, I guess, nothing too surprising. To wake up at 8 in the morning, go to lectures for 3 hours, do some lab work, and then study until midnight, and do the same thing over and over again, with a few sort of, I guess, breaks for some ballroom dancing, which is my hobby since my teenage years, and I love that more than anything else. It was definitely a sort of very focused time, and so making sure that it's not only I recognize the pattern of how to solve this question, but do I genuinely understand how things work out in this world? Because that's what science is about, right? Is the understanding of the world around us. And I was able, I do have to say, so organic was my favorite. So I think that's why I spent the most time on it, even though sort of objectively, it wasn't the best choice, because I would have done even higher scores if I focused on the things I was weaker at, like for example, physical chemistry or other or other subjects. However, because organic was my passion from the beginning, basically, I did sort of, I guess, focus quite a lot of time and effort onto that. And I think I already came with a decent background in it from the start, and I sort of expanded up on that over the course of the first year, and I was able to score 99 on the first exam, which was a 99% of the 100.
Unbelievable.
And I actually sort of went back and checked, and the highest up until then was 98. So I was very, very proud that I got the 99. However, I must say the first reaction that I had from my parents when I told them I got 99 was the highest grade ever. They were like, "Could you not figure out the last 1%? What happened?" I was like, I've tried, trust me. And I actually must say that I was pretty confident when I was turning in the exam. Like I got 100 because I answered every single question. I actually answered more questions that I was asked to, because you can actually choose which questions you answer on your finals. So I actually answered one entire full question extra, and every part of every single question of the ones I actually chose to answer. So I thought I had a pretty good sort of, I guess, safeguard. But I must have missed a small detail here and there, because actually it's actually I think quite interesting that in terms of at Oxford, if you just write the correct answer to the question, in a lot of times, you will get, the 70% mark, something of that sort. But unless you basically give every detail, every aspect you can possibly write down to support your claims, that's where the last 30% of those marks is. So actually, it's not too difficult if you understand so deeply the subject, which obviously it's sort of hard to read itself, to get about a 70% grade. I think the sort of cutoff for a first class degree is at the 70% mark. And I think about 30% of the cohort actually achieves that every year. So that's actually very, very commendable. But the end sort of starts splitting hairs between the 70 and the 80 and the 80 and the 90. Like, it gets exponentially more difficult to score those last little points here and there. I should have to say that there was a small part in me that wanted to contest those 99. And so I has to see the script and see where I sort of made a mistake. I was very actively discouraged from doing so because
I'm sure you'll never forget that.
And,
you'll never forget that moment. It's like, I got that one aspect wrong, but I actually can test it as well. So then you choose. So you go to Oxford. You're doing well, and then how did you ultimately decide the KC Nicolau lab at Rice University out of all the options you probably had afforded to you?
Absolutely. So over the course of basically the 3 or 4 years actually led up to the decision, I actually interned with a few different labs around the world. I actually did some research in Hong Kong with Professor Wong. I actually did an internship at Oxford, one of the professors there, Professor Dixon as well. I was looking into, there's actually got a scholarship from Slovakia that basically support me for half the summer to do some research work at a place of my choice. And I basically sort of chose to work with KC Nicolau because I've seen his great works in the field of organic chemistry. He's one of the sort of grandfathers of the discipline, or one of the most famous chemists in my area that I'm interested in. I actually sort of emailed him out of the blue. We never met before. I'm a random guy from Oxford. Can I come work with you? To which he replied that he will need to see some recommendation letters and sort of see what he can do. But it was overall quite a positive experience. I think sort of that he actually reached out back, because a lot of people would just ignore the email completely because you're a stranger on the internet, right? So I actually sort of scrambled, I guess, real quickly to put some recommendation letters all together to make sure that, I can show that I'm not making this up. I think it took a few weeks after that, which was basically pure silence. There was in anticipation of if something's going to come out of this. But eventually, I did receive an offer letter that says, you're welcome to come to Rice University. Actually, he was just moving from Scripps to Houston over that summer. So basically, interned with him just as he was starting his lab in Houston. And then I also did a second internship with him the year after that, just to make sure that I want to sign up for years of my life to this person, basically my grad school career. But actually, both internships were really, really well. And I was very fortunate that at the end of the first one, he actually gave me an acceptance letter to the PhD program, so that if I wanted to join his lab after I finished my master's at Oxford, there was his conditions to actually get the master's degree from Oxford. I couldn't just drop everything and leave. But I'm very glad I did. That actually I can join his lab in August of 2015 for a PhD.
Congratulations. That must have been such a rewarding moment. Someone that you look up to, a role model, and then they give you this offer letter of acceptance. That must have been a very rewarding moment. And then what ultimately led you from there to AbbVie in Chicago?
I think the first one was when I was, 16 or 17. I was doing the Intel ISEC, the Intel International Science and Engineering Fair in San Jose, California, where I actually was able to win the second grand award in chemistry that led to the honor of having a planet named after me.
You had the planet named after you as a result of winning the prize, second place at the Intel Science and Engineering competition in San Jose, California.
Yes, that's correct.
Wow.
So basically, the second place comes with a cash award, as well as with the honor of having actually a minor planet.
Talk about it. Talk about an honor and a compliment. You know what? Skip these little trivial prizes. We're just going to name an entire planet after you.
But yeah, I wouldn't say it's definitely not the most hands-on useful kind of thing to have. Obviously, some money was so well spent in sort of basically the flights and doing internships and being able to further my career as a scientist. It's a really cool talking point and bragging point. Catch someone's attention.
Especially if you're sending a cold email to someone, you say, listen, I'm the guy who has a planet named after him. I just wanted to grab a moment of your time. It's probably a unique email coming in your inbox.
Yes. And the other thing, that was also, I would say, quite top of the list of some really good scientific moments as well, was I actually remember this very vividly. I was at one of the preparation camps for the chemistry Olympiad in my last year of high school. And I was basically, I think we were in the middle of the practical at the time. And that was the moment when I actually received the email that I actually won the Palgrave Brown Scholarship at Oxford, which was worth basically 4 years times £10,000, which at the time would cover all of my expenses.
And you not only went to Oxford for free because of the scholarship, you basically got paid because you get the stipend on top of it to go.
Pretty much, yes.
So those are the 3 top moments: the scholarship to Oxford, the acceptance letter from your role model, Dr. Nicolau, and getting a planet named after you after winning the Intel Science and Engineering Prize. Amazing. So you have all these accomplishments, and then you decided to go work at AbbVie in Chicago. How did that come about?
So I actually must say that I wasn't necessarily considering my career in industry up until the last year of my PhD. I also always had a sort of vision of becoming a professor and so going down the academic route. However, after AbbVie licensed the patent I co-authored with Casey from us, it was something that sort of put them on my radar. And so I realized, if I ever want to give it a shot and sort of see what industry is about, I think I have a quite unique opportunity to actually do a postdoc for a year or two and sort of see how I like this environment. If it's something I can sort of see myself sort of staying in or not, do have a chance of going back to academia if I choose to do so at the end. I must say that sort of having some sort of accomplishments already from my PhD that sort of also pertain to AbbVie as a company, I think was sort of nice, sort of basically foot in the door and actually getting considered for that position. I interviewed here in January of last year. I think that went really well. I had some phenomenal colleagues here. I'm really, really happy here. So it was a no-brainer for me to join AbbVie at that point.
So what's a typical day consist of? I mean, what is your main goal that you're trying to achieve?
As of right now, as of the last 2 or 3 months, I've been working from home, which basically means I've been outsourcing all my chemistry to our collaborators because we can't go quite back to the lab because of the shutdown at this point. However, on a sort of normal day, I'm currently involved with basically figuring out new ways and sort of new routes how to make some interesting molecules. This is mostly on the sort of methodology development side. I can't talk about any of the specific details because of obviously of the confidentiality, some nature of my work. However, it's basically a support role to the whole drug discovery process.
The drug discovery process. So you're helping develop drugs that might end up in phase 3 trials, helping humans provide treatment properly to some of the conditions that they might have.
I think the ultimate goal for any sort of medical science, I guess med chemist or I guess scientist in this area is to put a drug on the market, right? That's obviously the dream, sort of the holy grail of why we all do this. So I think if we can get to that point, at some point in the future, that'll be absolutely wonderful. Obviously, I'm still in the early stages of my career at this very moment, so I'm not quite, at that point where I actually make any of those big level decisions, and so which direction of the project is going to go to, which compound to make, and so on. But it's definitely something that I'm really hoping I'll be able to achieve at some point in the future.
Would you like to have your own lab one day, or go back into academia ultimately?
I think having your own lab comes with all of good things and bad things. I think as of right now, I can foresee myself staying in the industry sphere, at least for the foreseeable future. I think it would really be a sort of nice goal to sort of work towards, basically have at some point in the future to be able to have your own lab and sort of manage, even students at university and stuff, give back to the community basically by imparting some knowledge and the skills that you basically acquire over the course of your career, and so give back and be able to train basically the next generation of scientists.
And what, looking back over your journey now, what would you say, Dr. Buchman, is the single most important attribute that got you to where you are today, that ultimately made you successful?
I think pinpointing just one single thing might be a little bit hard, so I'm going to give you a sort of cop-out answer with a few of them. If you are not enthusiastic and super interested in what you choose to pursue, you will have a very good time. You'll have a really bad time, because there is nothing that will force almost anyone to work 100 hours a week for multiple years without them actually genuinely enjoying what they do. I think so having some genuine passion for the subject and for the area of your expertise, I think is incredibly important, because that's the one thing that even when science is not going well and days are hard and you have some negative results after negative results and nothing seems to be going well, there's sort of one thing that can sort of keep you going. And I think that sort of also translates into the next one, which is sort of perseverance and resourcefulness in terms of being able to, I guess, find the good things even in a bad day, even when everything's going wrong. So basically figure out, I know why I'm doing this. I'm on a mission here. I know why I got to where I am right now. I know where I need to go in the future. So if I just keep doing what I'm doing and I have sort of the right vision in plan, there's sort of, I think, the sort of best way to achieve success.
Like if you're not passionate about it and you're not interested in it, and you don't have this underlying drive, desire, motivation, this fire in your belly for it, it's probably an indication that you should probably choose something else. And
absolutely
similar to you, maybe we should do a weekly experiment, just test as many things out. Because the more you do things you don't like and the more you identify things you don't like, the closer you're going to get to finding things you do like. And then once you find it, having that rose-colored glass of, does the rose have thorns or do the thorns have roses? If you will.
Absolutely. I think it's very important to sort of triage quite quickly and quite early in your life a few different things that you might be interested in, and sort of keep an open mind. And I think so naturally you'll sort of, I guess, find the things that you enjoy the most. I mean, I would have never guessed I would enjoy ballroom dancing when I first tried it. I was obviously terrible at the very beginning. I was a kid and I could not move. But it was something that, with just a few practices, I really fell in love with. And it's something that I hold really close to my heart as one of my favorite hobbies. And it's something I will sort of always look into. I actually must say that the first association or sort of club I joined when I came to Oxford was the Oxford University Dance Sport Club. It was the sort of first thing I sort of seeked out immediately, because actually towards the end of my high school years, I was getting really, really busy with all the chemistry and sort of schoolwork and research and everything else. So I had to sort of put my dancing on hold a little bit, because I think my parents did a very good argument that, if you I guess want to dance, you also have to make sure you have, a proper career.
A way to fund that dancing.
So to speak, exactly. So because, it's a really nice hobby, but, I think they quickly realized that, I guess my talents are not, in sort of physical education type of space, but mostly, in a sort of, I guess, more of a thinking and some science
it roles. Seems so dichotomous between organic chemistry and ballroom dancing. And I love how you have it. Yeah, they're polar opposites, but yet you find a way to make both of them work. And that's really cool that you're tapping into both sides of your brain rather than just remaining in one, because you're in a lab setting, you don't really move around that much, but in ballroom dancing, you're moving around a lot.
So I actually have to say, I think partially why I was able to get through Oxford, with decent mental health and everything, was to have sort of a creative outlet and sort of do something that, if you're dancing for an hour, you forget about all the tutorials, the lectures, the labs, the reports, everything else sort of goes away for an hour. You can sort of clear your mind and focus on something that's completely sort of orthogonal to anything else you've done that day. And it's really, really nice as a sort of reset, and it sort of keeps your mind off of the problems, so as a temporary sort of blockade. And then, after you're done, you can basically go back and sort of start fresh, and really sort of helps you sort of, I guess, clear your mind and be
it's
very,
like a
very
form
focused.
Of meditation.
Exactly. And it sort of focuses your energy that, because, I have to finish these things by that deadline. So, I know this is what I have to do to be able to do other things I also enjoy. So if I don't finish this homework by that hour, I'm going to miss my practice, and that's not good. So let's make sure I can get this done. So that was really sort of one of the things that sort of, I guess, keeps you motivated in a lot of ways.
I think that's why one of the most important things to do as a kid is get involved in extracurricular activities. It helps you learn time management and where you're spending your energy, your focus. Speaking of your journey, what's the biggest lesson you think you've learned along the way that you wish you maybe have learned sooner?
I think in terms of the sort of, I guess, schoolwork type things, that being different than other people is normal, and you can always find people who think like you if you just look hard enough and long enough. It's something that I like to really sort of commend my high school as my sort of external gifted children school system for, because it's sort of pulled people who are very interested, in being academically as best as they can into one place where they could thrive all together, which I think really, really advanced my growth in the academic sphere. I think that it really sort of helped jumpstart my career with the sort of huge leap so forward. And from there, just, taking the time to figure out what do you want to do and where do you want to go and what kind of life you would like to have, let's say 5, 10, or 15 years from now, which obviously when you're 10 or 15 years old, you don't really know answers to any of these questions. And I must say, I had no idea what I want to do when I was 10. And even if I had, I couldn't even tell you what it was now. That's how pretty far away I am from that. Because I didn't even know so chemistry or ballroom dancing pretty much existed at that point. So it's okay to sort of change your mind on things, and it's okay to learn and sort of, add some data into your analysis, then to pivot in terms of which direction you want to go to. But I think the sort of overall theme, if you can keep that fairly consistent, is of focusing on being excellent in your field. That's something that's definitely going a really long way in your professional life.
Thanks for sharing, Dr. Buckner. We're going to transition now into something called the under 30 seconds round. I'm going to fire off some questions. I want you to answer with the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
I think so. Let's do it.
What is the book you've gifted more often than any other book, and why?
I must say I was never in the sort of gifting books kind of sphere, but the one thing that I think made the most impact on me was a book by Dr. Kurti and his wife Barbara Taco, which is the organic chemistry textbook. Basically has all the name reactions inside, and to some great advantage in my academic life. And I've learned a lot of chemistry from that book when I was a kid.
We'll have to put that in the show notes. Can you describe it again, or what the title is and who it's by? It's slower.
It's Name Reaction in Organic Chemistry textbook by Dr. Kurti and his wife, Dr. Chaco. I can see the link for that as well.
Perfect. Thank you. And what's one of the best investments you've made and one of the worst investments you've made, and why?
I think the best investment, I think on this case, I'll approach it as a time investment, as an effort investment. And that was really take everything that Oxford gives you and sort of use your time while you're there to the fullest potential. Read every book you can, be in library as long as you can, and make sure you absorb all the knowledge that basically you're already paying for by being there. So you want to make sure to sort of do your best at basically every activity that you do. So don't half-ass things, but just, because once you commit, you have to commit 110%. In terms of worst investments, I don't think I've sort of had anything that I regret, I guess, majorly in my professional career. But in sort of as the more sort of, I guess, technical details, in terms of after you're trying a certain, I guess, chemistry sort of problem to solve in one particular way, and it's not going as well as you would like, there's nothing wrong with abandoning an idea and try something else. And so I guess figuring out a way, you don't have to invest a lot of time and effort into one thing that's clearly not working, and figuring out, it's time to switch the strategy and figure out a different way.
Yeah, give yourself a threshold or a deadline. Give yourself a threshold or a deadline where you say, okay, I'm going to choose at this moment. Am I going to pivot or persevere?
Absolutely.
What's the most impactful thing you do in your morning routine and the most impactful thing you do in your evening routine?
So I must say that my morning and evening routines changed drastically since I'm doing some working at home, because there's no commute to work and all that stuff. But in terms of the sort of one thing I always keep constant is obviously a quick shower and a good breakfast every morning. It sort of starts your day up, so wakes you up a little bit, so you can basically focus straight away onto doing most productive things over the course of the day. And most recently, I actually picked up reading about an hour before bed every time. I try to be as diligent as I can about it. I don't always make it, but sort of, I guess sort of shifting your focus from basically consuming media and sort of watching YouTube and videos to actually reading a book. What
are you reading right now?
I actually read quite a lot of books about investments and so investing, because I feel like I never get sort of a formal. I never got a formal education in personal finance. It's something that I find really fascinating. So recently, it's a space that I've sort of been trying to, I guess, absorb as much knowledge as I can in that area, so I can set myself up for the future.
What's your go-to breakfast?
My go-to breakfast, I like scrambled eggs. I actually have a recipe by Gordon Ramsay I actually found on YouTube. I try to recreate it to the best of my abilities. So also, shout out to him if he's watching this.
Shout out to Gordon Ramsay. Your scrambled egg breakfast is the breakfast of champions.
Absolutely.
Pretend you won the Peter Thiel Fellowship and you were going to get money to start a business instead of go to college, or you were going to do something else other than go to college with this money. What's the very first thing you do to use this money?
I must say, if I won a scholarship of $100,000 at the age of 18 when I was about to join Oxford, I don't think I would have done anything majorly differently. I think Oxford gave me a really, really good sort of foundation into being a scientist. And I don't think I would be anywhere close to where I am right now if I didn't do those 4 years of really, really hard work. So I think at that time I would just probably put it into a high yield savings account and sort of leave it there until I figure out a sort of good use of the money. But at that stage, I'll definitely still go to college because I think that was one of the best decisions I've ever made for myself.
There you go. And last one, what's something you never knew you needed?
I think especially sort of recently, having good friends and having people to rely on, it's something that I think very, very important. I don't think I put as much emphasis on that earlier in my career when I was very, very focused academically and on sort of, I guess, more professional development in the science area. But I think having sort of people you can trust and rely on is really, really important.
Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Buckman. Before you go, what's the next big goal, milestone, or bucket list item you want to achieve?
I think that's a really good question. In terms of the sort of near-term goals in sort of, I guess, quite near future, I would definitely like to sort of start, I guess, making even more of an impact onto the company, but more of a senior position. So that's, I think, sort of I sort of have in my sights, I would say quite recently. I think the sort of long-term goal, and this maybe the 5 to 10 years, would be to become a team leader, or basically a group leader in a pharma company. When you have some direct reports, you can basically advance the science even faster. And I think the long-term goal, I actually have 2 of them, and it's sort of one or the other. I would love to either get a Nobel Prize one day, or put a drug on the market. And I guess whichever comes sooner, I'm happy with that for sure.
Perfect. I love it. And where do listeners go to connect with you directly?
You can email me at marek.bookman@gmail.com. I have an Instagram and Facebook. I think I have Twitter, and I don't really use very much. And you can find me also on LinkedIn.
We'll put that in the show notes, marek.buckman@gmail.com. Please go connect with Dr. Buckman. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here today. This is Dr. Buckman with AbbVie, who uses organic chemistry for biopharmaceutical products. We learned so much today. We learned how to get a planet named after you, how to get the most out of your time in academia or even Oxford. We also learned the breakfast of champions. Dr. Buckman, thank you so much for being here today. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. I hope this episode helped you as much as it helped me. Who do you think would benefit from hearing it? You can make an impact on their life by sharing it now. Before you go, I encourage you to tell us your favorite part of the episode in the review section. Now it's time to level up. Level up.